In today's video, Strat Gaming is going to show me how to create a kingdom. Some of you may die, but it's a sacrifice I'm willing to make.
Not in my swamp, you bastard.
Oof, it's hideous.
That's right, today we're helping Lord Farquaad establish the kingdom of his dreams. We'll look at the 4 stages of kingdom creation. Before you start one, then early, mid, and late game kingdom management. Princess Fiona's patience is running thin, so let's get to it. Before young Farquaad can start a kingdom, he's gonna need a few things. Clan Tier 4, tons of money, and a single fief. Clan Tier 4 requires 900 Renown to reach, which can be a bit of a grind. My 2 favorite methods of spamming Renown are the trade 125 perks or through specific combat methods. The trade perks level 125, Artisan Community, and Great Investor are the best passive ways to reach Clan Tier 4 in a reasonable amount of time. Artisan Community needs profitable workshops, and Great Investor needs profitable caravans. We're limited to how many of each we can have based on the clan tier though. At Clan Tier 0 we can have 3 companions to send out on a trade caravan, but only 1 workshop. Once we get married, we can add another caravan to the list, and if we're playing a campaign instead of sandbox, we can also send our brother out. Artisan Community is better for the long term since workshops are much safer to own, but Great Investor will get early renown much faster since we can send more caravans out. We could also take the combat route if time is of the essence. Early on, fighting gangs in the city can be a great source of quick renown. Each town has 3 sets of gangs and will take exactly 1 day each to clear out. This group of 18 thugs yielded 6.4 renown, so close to 20 renown per city in 3 days. Not bad. Mounted archery is another easy and safe way to earn early renown. This pack of 40 looters poses little threat to a mounted Farquaad archer, yielding 7.4 renown. The money and loot gained is much lower than gang fighting though. If running solo isn't doable, keep one thing in mind. Fighting larger battles with other clans can slow your renown gains significantly. In this test, we fight a massive battle, resulting in 971 casualties, 268 of which are a result of our troops. For the effort, only 16 renown is earned. If we were to get a similar number of kills, but in a solo battle, the renown would skyrocket up to 29. Renown is capped at 50 per battle and is split among everyone who participated, so massive battles give very little renown gain per kill, relatively speaking. To say Farquaad needs a lot of money would be an understatement. Being king is expensive, so he'll need to save up millions of dinars to be safe. While there are many ways to make money in Bannerlord, only a few are reasonable for the amount that he will need. At the very start, doing quests can be a great way to get going. The best quest combo in the game is something called the Flassan Special. Start by finding the Bounty Hunter quest in towns from a gang leader. This will light up the bandit hideout that needs to be cleared. Look at the villages nearby for another quest called Bandit Base. With these 2 quests active, the hideout can now be cleared. We get 300 dinars directly from the hideout, 666 from selling the loot, 3,000 from each of the quests, and finally, because we have plenty of prisoners now, the local silver mine has a labor request for another 2,000 dinars. In total, that's 9,000 dinars for clearing a single hideout, which took about 1 day to complete. In the previous combat examples, he earned 500 for the gang fights plus 2,500 for selling the loot. Mounted archery, he earned 450 from the looters and 1,000 for the looted gear. It's not great, but can be a nice stepping stone for the next stage. Smithing is slow to start, but once higher tier parts are unlocked, it's basically printing money. I recommend making the best weapon you can with the parts you have, but vary the size of the parts to see which will sell for more. It's impossible to know every combination, so testing like this can help. In this case, the longer blade sells for 3 times the exact same blade at minimum length. Then just spam the better design and try new parts as they're unlocked. By the time tier 4 parts are unlocked, it's not hard to make 100,000 in a single day of crafting. My lawyer Gregory wanted to chime in here.
I highly recommend putting the money in the bank to good use. It does no good sitting there, so invest and earn a return. Tell them about workshops and caravans, Strat.
I thought lawyers gave legal advice, not financial. Anyways, he's right. Farquaad should put these dinars to use by buying workshops, caravans, or even both. Most workshops will cost around 25,000 dinars, so they aren't cheap. The returns can range anywhere from amazing to nothing, so invest wisely. These 3 were earning between 600 and 1200 per day, or an average of 900. At 75,000 in total investment, it can take around 84 days to recoup the total investment, which is pretty good. A word of caution: when joining a kingdom as a mercenary or vassal, be sure to sell the workshops that might end up in the enemy's hands, or the initial investment will be completely lost. In this case, we get about 35% of our investment back. Caravans got some love in a recent patch and are actually viable now. For this example, Farquaad sends out 6 caravans in total. At 15k each, the total investment was 90,000. At the end of a year-and-a-half test, all 6 were still in business and the bank balance rose from 10,000 to 136, or about 84,000 dinars per year. This means each caravan earns roughly 14,000 each year. Not bad at all. Workshops are a safer investment, but caravans are much more profitable in the short term. With a plan to hit Clan Tier 4 quickly and several investment strategies to secure a fortune, all that's left is to take a fief. Hold your horses, Farquaad. There are a couple optional things you might want to consider doing before taking the big leap. Increasing relations with clans around the map that you want to recruit in the future can prove valuable. It's much easier and cheaper to recruit a clan into your kingdom with higher relations. Here are some of my favorites. Prison breaks can be challenging to find and pull off, but offer a ton of charm and roguery XP. More importantly, with some charm skill, we earn 38 relations for a single one. The most common way to raise relations is from battles. In this case, we gain 10 relations by releasing this noble after beating him in battle.
But I'm not done yet!
This noble was a prisoner of that enemy party, and by releasing him after battle, another 25 relations gained. And finally, one of the lesser known methods is to marry off family members to other clans. In this case, Farquaad's son, Mavinan.
Don't laugh. He's just a boy.
We can marry him off by talking to another clan leader, paying a dowry, and reaping the benefits. In this case, 71 relations for a single marriage. I can also recommend finding a wife, as once a kingdom is formed, wars can make finding a match incredibly difficult. We can either pay for a spouse or pass chat checks to finalize a marriage. This early in the game, chat checks are significantly cheaper and Farquaad is a titan.
Watch your tongue, peasant.
Having the charm level 200 perk natural leader will make this task much easier. Normally this chat check would need 3 passes to succeed, but with the perk you only need 2. And since he's quite ugly and broke, Farquaad needs all the help he can get. Somehow he convinces this poor girl to marry him, and he must seek out the clan leader to finalize the deal. Only 1,500 dinars for her?
Nice.
I'm an idiot and recorded the wrong marriage. It's supposed to be between Lord Farquaad and Princess Fiona. Luckily, someone recorded it and sent me the file afterwards.
Look at this dude. Wait till you see the... No, 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 no.
Oh, also, here's your wedding gift. And a final point before the fief can be taken. Here is the charm build I recommend. While it's not a requirement, running a kingdom takes a ton of influence, so having 275 charm and these perks can really help. Okay, it's time for Farquaad to become a lord and take his first fief. There are a few factors to consider: geography, military, and politics. Starting a kingdom from scratch is challenging to say the least, but with a few adjustments it can be much easier. Looking at the map, there are well over 100 fiefs to choose from, but not all of them make a good starting fief. It's so hard to see borders on this map. Much better. Taking a fief on the border of several other fiefs is a recipe for disaster. For example, this corner where Danustica and Husenfolk are located. Taking a fief here means 3 kingdoms at least can declare war on us once we form a kingdom. Taking a fief around here where Puros is means only 2 kingdoms border us. And the best case scenario, taking a fief in the middle of a kingdom at the edge of the map. Taking a fief here in Aserai territory isolates us from everyone except the Aserai, meaning we can eat them from the inside out and call for peace as needed. Let's test these assertions just to make sure. By owning Danustica and having a kingdom, the Aserai declared war the instant we unpaused. By the 17th day, the Northern Empire declares war. 5 days later, the Khuzaits join in, and 10 more, the Western Empire as well. That's 4 wars in less than 2 months, and each one needed to be paid off. 1,000 dinars down the drain. If we were to own an interior fief, it takes more than 2 months for the first war to declare, and peace can last for years. I stopped after nothing happened for 3 years straight. While finding the perfect location is easy to do on a map, it's much more difficult to do in practice, which leads me to target selection. A fief that's had time to build up militia and a garrison is significantly harder than one that has recently been sieged down and is starving. We can zoom out and look for the siege symbol to pop up, then rush there. In this case, Odok is being sieged by the Aserai. They have just over 200 defenders, which is a reasonable target for us. We can't declare war directly, and we can't siege without being at war. So instead, we attack a caravan, a villager party, or a noble from their kingdom. We can retreat immediately to avoid the fight. The problem with sieging a town like this was the defenders won their siege defense, and still have plenty of troops in the area to defend. Before our siege camp even completes, they rally half of their kingdom to defend. This is rough. Either spend the money to sue for peace, or start over. It's much easier to take a recent conquest like Merenia Castle. With only 35 defenders, we simply need to complete the siege camp to win the battle. In this case, we finished just in time to beat the big army coming in. We have enough troops to dissuade them from attacking, but we could just as easy pay for peace. And finally, the last option, with a little bit of luck, we could find a rebellious town. For this to happen in the early game, a kingdom would need to take a fief from a different culture from their own. While it's rare, it can happen. Sieging a rebel town has its pluses and minuses. They generally have a massive garrison and militia to start, but they can't form huge armies to defend, which allows us plenty of time to complete the siege. Because of this, it makes sense to take plenty of time and starve the garrison out. Now, attempting to take a rebel town has no drawbacks, since those clans are usually destroyed a few months after they lose their town. Instead of fighting close to 450 troops, we now have to deal with less than 200, and because we spent time taking out the walls, our troops can march right in and clean up. Now for the final step, the easiest part. Time to earn your lordship, Farquaad. Appoint any companion or family member to be the mayor of this new fief and open dialogue with them. If you don't see them, exit the fief and re-enter to get them to spawn in. Sorry, did I just break your immersion? Wow, not even crowned yet and she's already sitting on the throne like a boss. We know who wears the panties in that relationship. The top chat dialogue is to proclaim a new kingdom. Next, we pick an option that determines the starting policy for the kingdom. Generally, it's tied to the culture of the main character, but for a wrong culture fief, you can pick between the main character's culture and the fief's culture. Here's a list of which policies each culture starts with. Most cultures start with 2 policies. Empire starts with only 1 though. Both Vlandia and Khuzait have great policies, while the others are mediocre at best. Next, we get to name the kingdom. I ran out of ideas, to be honest. They make a cute couple, right?
I and Lord Farquaad.
That may be true, but without a good plan moving forward, you won't be for long. Before we move on to the early kingdom stage, we need to talk briefly about the other ways to form a kingdom, one that Farquaad would certainly object to. By becoming a vassal at clan tier 2, we can start accumulating fiefs quicker and easier. If we can join another army or create our own in order to take a fief, we're much more likely to show up on the ownership votes. By the time we reach clan tier 4, it's not unreasonable to own 2 to 4 fiefs and be in great shape to start your own kingdom. There are some issues to this method though. You rarely get to pick where your fiefs are located, and having them spread all over the place makes it impossible to defend. It also opens us up to war with several kingdoms at once, as we discussed before. And finally, once we leave the kingdom and take the fiefs with us, we lose a huge amount of relations with the kingdom's nobles, and they immediately declare war on us. And because we just started a kingdom, we don't have the requisite influence to sue for a quick peace. One of my favorite counters to this mess comes from the Joker strategy. We save up influence and vote for as many wars as we can, making it much harder for them to focus on our fiefs. With the kingdom established, let's look at the starting priorities. Important policies need to be passed ASAP. The borders need to be expanded carefully, and game-ending wars need to be avoided at all costs. Since there's a single clan in the kingdom, passing policies is trivial and limited by how quickly we can farm influence. Fortunately, farming influence is much the same as farming renown, which we covered earlier. If we can have Charm Perk 125 Firebrand, we can cut the policy cost by half, going from 100 influence down to 50. For policy selection, I recommend taking influence gain policies first, allowing us to snowball how many we take in a short amount of time. Sacred Majesty first, Bailiffs second, and an optional third being Senate. Next, the best loyalty policies, Forgiveness of Debts, and Tribunes of the People. After these policies, I recommend taking Royal Guard for the extra party size, as every troop counts in the early kingdom stage. There are a ton of options at this point, but it's largely up to personal preference and what the kingdom needs at the time. One thing to keep in mind, if another king declares war on our kingdom, we'll need at least 200 influence to sue for peace, so it can often make sense to save 1 to 200 influence in the bank as a buffer that we never go below. Next, we need to look towards our neighbors for the best expansion route. Similar rules apply to when we were a solo clan. Finding easy targets is the name of the game. In this scenario, Farquaad starts with Poros. It's a great location because it only borders 2 kingdoms and has a couple fiefs close by. The Western Empire has been at war with Britannia for quite some time now, and their troops in the field should be depleted. Onika Castle is the closest target, but we only have 15 influence, and waiting weeks to save up isn't an option since it gives the enemy time to recuperate their strength. Instead, we raid their village to start the war immediately, cancel the raid, and head to the castle to siege. Notice it still takes the influence, and there's now a negative balance, so it might be prudent to save some influence first. They only have 300 defenders, and because we have 3 of the other companion parties in our army, we can field nearly 500, making the siege very very easy. Luckily, the siege engine's complete before this 900 stack shows up, and we'll have a much easier time fighting them from the inside as a defender than from the outside. In case you were wondering how powerful Lord Farquaad was, watch this. Wow, he almost went into orbit. Winning the siege is the easy part. Dealing with the deluge of attacks afterwards is another story. If we have 200 influence, I highly recommend suing for peace at this point. However, that's not the case here, and we must now defend. I went ahead and set up an even more difficult scenario. The enemy has over 1,200 troops, and Poros has no garrison, only militia defenders. There are two ways to go about this. The first method requires no combat or commanding skills. Let them siege the fief down, but stay near the entrance. Once they begin the assault, they will start to take casualties, and we can break into the fief to help the defenders. In this case, it took 70 troops to be sacrificed in order to enter, and we now have a defensive siege. The balance of power is still in the enemy's favor, but the math behind the siege auto-resolve is heavily skewed in our favor. As you can see, Farquaad saved the day, racking up 1,250 kills while only losing 173, and 91 of which were militia that will replenish for free. Adding back in the 70 lost to break in, the total comes to 152 total losses to kill 1,250. Not a bad trade. The second method requires some combat and commanding skills. Again, we wait for the enemy to start the siege, but this time we monitor Poros' militia numbers. They start with roughly 300 and the enemy about 1,250. With each hour that passes, units will die on both sides in the assault, but because our side has the fief, our militia get massive benefits, as we saw in the previous example. As the militia numbers drop close to 100, we need to step in and start the battle. Anything below 100 and their numbers will drop like fiends against looters. Instead of fighting with 500 of our troops in the field against their 1,250, we now have 638, including the militia, against only 710 enemies. I like these odds much more, and with some skill and the right amount of archers, we can kill off their army and lose only 20 units of our own. While we did lose many of our militia, they will regenerate back quickly and are free. We only lost 20 of our own troops here compared to the 150 in the previous example. Let's look at one more example of what Farquaad should be doing in the early stages of the kingdom. Again, target kingdoms that are already at war with somebody else. Lycaon isn't far from Poros and would make a fine addition to the kingdom. Instead of raiding to start the war, this time we target an enemy noble party. This will wipe out some of their troops, and more importantly, it does not cost any influence. With some luck, the enemy won't show up in time to stop the siege engines from being built, and we can take the town with ease. Not long after, a huge stack of 1,100 troops comes sauntering by to take Lycaon back, which is when we make our exit with the fief. Keep in mind, if you take fiefs from the enemy, the peace deal will get more expensive until you've sufficiently drained their manpower. For hit and run tactics like this, peace deals will be very expensive. Between 2,000 to 5,000 is very common, and one of the biggest reasons I recommend saving up millions of dinars before starting a kingdom. After taking the third or fourth fief, Farquaad has moved into the middle stages of kingdom management. What should he do next, you might ask? It's best demonstrated with an analogy.
I mean, that's a little like saving up sex for your old age. I mean...
Whoops, right topic, wrong clip.
It's like banging a tennis ball against a brick wall, which can be fun. What you want is you want a partner to return the ball. Do you want a partner?
Yeah. Spot on. Running a kingdom is just like sex. It's much more fun when you're not doing it alone. There are two options here: recruiting nobles and promoting companions. Recruiting nobles is a complex topic, so let's break it down into smaller bites. In order to recruit a clan into the kingdom, we must approach the clan leader, not the other nobles in the clan. Clan leaders are designated with an extra title in front of their name. In this case, the Empire uses Archon. We can also look them up in the encyclopedia by clicking on the clan flag, and it'll display their name and designate them as the leader. We select the chat option, there's something I'd like to discuss, and candidly, what do you think of your liege Regea? If we get this dialogue, it means the conditions aren't right for recruitment. What does that mean exactly? Well, there's tons of variables, but let's look at the most impactful ones. If we don't have enough dinars in the bank, they won't consider it. We add 1 billion dinars, but he still won't budge. Having high relations with the clan plays a role as well, so we increase relations to 100, but he's still not interested. If the clan we're trying to recruit owns land, then being at war with them can help, since taking fiefs after leaving a kingdom results in a war anyways. However, that wasn't the issue in this case. He's still not interested. Now let's take 4 random towns from a kingdom he's not a part of and see if that helps. Land and army strength are both factors. More land means more wealth, and more garrisons means more troops. Aha, finally you cracked under the pressure. Now we have the opportunity to recruit, but must pass chat checks first. Because we increase relations with them first, our chat options have a higher chance to succeed, and and we have the option for double chat passes. And to make our life even easier, we took charm level 200 natural leader to decrease the number of passes we need to earn to succeed by 1, but we still get the full amount of attempts. It's a really OP perk. And just like that, we pass and move on to the negotiation stage. This clan owns a town nearby, so recruiting them is extremely expensive, almost 1.8 million dinars. Now let's reload and try it again with a different order. We give ourselves the same 4 towns, but no relations boost and no money in the bank. He turns it down, so the towns alone are not enough. We add back in the dinars to the bank, but again turned down. Adding back in the relations gain, it's still not enough. The only missing factor is being at war. Once we go to war, he will happily join us again. Let's run a few more scenarios to try to get the full picture of what's going on. After a quick reload, we take Volstrom from them and see if that changes anything. And just like that, he has no issues changing sides whatsoever. We have no relations, no money in the bank, but because he has no fiefs, he's much easier to persuade. And he only wants 300,000 to do so. Repeating this exact same steps, but adding in 100 relations lowers the negotiation amount to 285, which is 5% less. We repeat this again, but add in the money to the bank and go to war before recruiting, but still get the same 285. Okay, we're almost there. Now we strip their kingdom of towns except for Volstrom, which is their personal holdings. Now he's interested in talking, which means the relative strength of the kingdom they're in compared to ours plays a big role. And they only want 1 million dinars instead of the 1.8 from earlier. And for the final test, we repeat these exact steps, but go to war before recruiting. The ask goes from 1 million down to 500,000, which is nearly 50% less. Okay, this was a lot to take in, so let's look at some key takeaways here. There are many factors that play into a clan defecting and joining our kingdom. Having lots of money, high relations, lots of land, and a large military all can help. Having one of several of these factors covered may still not be enough, but weakening the kingdom they are currently in can help tip the balance in our favor. Being at war with a prospective clan can help lower the cost of recruiting them, but only if they own a fief. And finally, having good relations can lower the cost of recruitment by 5%. Someone looked at the code for me previously, and it seems having 5 to 6 million dinars is the sweet spot for highest chance to recruit. Hopefully that sheds some light on why it's so hard to recruit nobles from other kingdoms. The second option is much simpler to understand. We can promote companions to run their own clans within our kingdom. To do this, we need fiefs we can give away, companions in our party, 20,000 dinars, and 500 influence. We have to open dialogue with our companions, but be sure you're not inside a fief when doing this. On the party screen, click on the companion you wish to promote, click on the chat icon below the picture, select I wish to reward you for your services, and the rest is straightforward. We even get to choose a name for their clan. One thing to keep in mind, donating a fief that has the same culture as the companion we're promoting is very important. This will help them avoid the -3 debuff to loyalty and make it nearly impossible to lose towns to a rebellion. In this case, we promoted 5 companions to run their own clan and donated a single fief to each. They default with 3 members in total and start at clan tier 2, which means they can only field a single party of about 80 troops, plus if they have some steward skill and party size perks. I also ran a test to see if any of these promoted companions would get married. After 3 years of waiting, 3 out of the 6 had picked up wives. One was the daughter of Ekerend, a noble from one of the Empire kingdoms, and the other 2 were spawned out of thin air. With a few companion clans under Farquaad's banner, it's time to expand. Hit and run is still viable, but with each added clan, the war and peace votes will cost more influence. Instead, longer wars can be waged and more land taken per war, but we have to shift our strategy. I prefer to play defensive in the early stages of the war. As we saw previously, it's much easier to let the enemy army burn their troops through siege assaults versus our militia. Fortunately, the AI never learns the lesson as we have a repeat slaughter.
Another one, another one, another one, and another one.
After destroying several armies, it's time to go on the offensive. Jalmaris is close by to our other kingdom fiefs and will make a fine addition. Because we've drained most of the armies, nobody shows up to contest the siege and the town falls. Other kingdoms will begin to dogpile on us, so make sure to save up influence for the peace votes. It's much better to focus all attention on a single enemy, especially one drained of their troops. It's not uncommon to have several more waves of armies trying to take back recent conquests. The more that are wiped from the map, the easier it'll be to take more more land. The main thing limiting our growth is how many troops we lose. In this case, Rotea drained our poor little companion parties into nothing, so suing for peace is a great option here, allowing for time to recruit back up to full party limit. As the kingdom expands, our borders will clash with new enemies, opening up the possibility for new wars. While it may be fun to fight different cultures, Farquaad wants domination quickly, so focusing on one kingdom at a time is best. The Western Empire is already weakened from our previous wars, making it the ideal target to continue expansion. Each fief taken can convert into more clans and larger armies, but also reduces the enemy's ability to defend and counterattack. Now, if fighting the same noble army 10 times in a row isn't your cup of tea, then I suggest getting levels 225 scouting and riding perks. Mounted patrols and keen sight pair nicely, giving a 100% reduction to prisoner escape chance for any noble held in our main party. It's particularly easy to pick off aggressive nobles trying to raid our villages. It reminds me of the moth memes. If you're using companion parties, be sure to check their prisoners after the battle and pull any nobles they have into our own party. Hold Alt over the picture and it'll show a noble at the top of the prisoner list. Click on their picture, then donate troops, and scroll down to the prisoner section and transfer them over. Be sure to empty your garrison so that smaller armies come to siege down the fief. A strong garrison will attract only big armies, but militia-only garrisons will attract smaller, easier to defeat ones. After only a few weeks of defending, we've amassed 40 enemy nobles. They still have a few left, but we can safely head out and siege their fiefs down now. Be careful not to expand the borders into other kingdoms or you'll find yourself with multiple wars or at the very least expensive peace deals. Without the help of other clans, we were able to capture 62 nobles and conquer all of these provinces as a solo kingdom. Before we move on to the endgame strategy for kingdoms, we need to talk about noble defections. It's possible for a clan within our kingdom to leave and join another kingdom. If they own fiefs, they could defect and take those fiefs with them, weakening our kingdom overall. While there are many factors, being poor seems to be the biggest issue with clans defecting. We can keep an eye on clans' wealth by going to the encyclopedia and finding their clan. If they're poor or very poor, they run a reasonable risk of leaving. We can remedy this by donating money directly to the clan leader through the barter screen. Personally, I've never had to do this myself as I tend to keep large sums of money in the bank, which seems to be the best deterrent. I don't know the exact amount, but I generally have 10 million or more. Donating fiefs to each clan can help as well. And finally, we get to the late game kingdom management, which can be summed up like this. That's right. There really isn't much to do in the late game other than what we've already been doing. It's a blank canvas. Figure out ways to make it fun for you. Some ideas to try out are world conquest, building fiefs up to massive prosperity, or trying to optimize the entire economy of Calradia. Or, my personal favorite, restarting with a new build. And since her scenes got cut in the final edits, Princess Fiona would like to handle the outro. Take it away, Toots.
Click on this video to see all 35 kingdom policies tested and ranked. Click the like button or I'll send Shrek to sit on you. Thanks for watching and you'll see Strat on the next one. Oh, and these people are awesome. Thanks for supporting his channel. Mwah.
So, earn invest. Blah, 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 blah.
The return. We must.